Hello and welcome back to Afterglow episode 114. And in this episode I'll be talking about Mega Man. Just Mega Man. There's no numbers, there's no letters, it's just Mega Man. The first one for the NES. Although I will be branching out a little bit in this episode. I might discuss Wily Wars just a hair, and I'll be discussing Mega Man Powered Up, which was the chibi-looking remake for the PSP just a little bit. But primarily we're talking about the original release of Mega Man on the NES. But before we get into that, of course, we have to thank our patrons. So a special shout out for fans that support the show goes out to OCD in every RPG and Texan Toby with Big Red Flavor. Thank you guys so much for your support on Patreon. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And now we're getting ready to start to talk about a game that kicked off the legacy of the Blue Bomber with the original Mega Man on the NES, which is a really, really good game. It is a very, very difficult game as well. I did struggle with this one as a kid, and I never beat it as a kid. It took me being a full grown-up and a lot of time, and maybe spamming the pause trick with the elect beam to beat this game. But we're going to go into all of that after our first music break. And of course, welcome back. So, if you are a long-time listener of the show, you know that I actually started playing Mega Man, not with the original, but with Mega Man 3. Then I got to go back and play Mega Man 2. So, how did I get into Mega Man 1? Well, this game was a rental. I did find a rental store that carried it. It took me a little bit to find it because of the box art. So, yeah, the box art for Mega Man 1 is really different from later Mega Man games. And, it's not good. Someone was very confused whenever they came up with the artwork, being some dude in a very retro X-Men costume with the blue and yellow everywhere holding, it looks like a laser pistol. Very, very weird. But, I did eventually find some place that managed to carry it, and I did rent it and check it out. So I gave it a rental, and going back, for me, Mega Man 3 was about at the perfect level when it comes to difficulty. With Mega Man 2 maybe being a little easy, and of course Mega Man 1 being a little hard. This game was no joke when it came out. The power-ups to restore your life and your weapon energy are much more infrequent in this game than in the next two. Even though it is a shorter game, because whenever you first boot it up and get to the boss selection screen, you only find 6 Robot Masters instead of the usual 8, which is a little different, but I think it fits really well because this game is a lot more difficult. Now, a lot of people recommend you start out with Gutsman because he's weak against the Mega Buster and the Hyper Bomb. I didn't go with that. I actually start with Cutman. I can usually beat him with Mega Buster okay. And then I will move on to Electman, That stage is really cool because it's very vertical with how it's built instead of horizontal. It reminds me a lot of some of the Super Mario Bros. 2 levels, how a lot of them have more of a vertical setup than a horizontal setup, and I thought that was a cool thing. But you can take out Electman with the rolling cutter. Just be careful because, dear God, that Thunder Beam can really thrash you. But once you get it, it is a really good weapon because it shoots not only forward but up and down as well. Next in the boss order list would be Iceman, who is weak against the Thunder Beam. And of course, after you have Ice, you might as well go after Fireman, who's weak to the Ice Slasher. And then finally, last, you got Bomb Man, who to me has like the most worthless weapon in the game. I hardly ever use bombs, but he is weak against Firestorm. I guess fire ignites fuses on bombs. Sure. But that's pretty well the boss order. But the stages are a lot more tricky than the stages that come in later games. Especially starting out with Gutsman, because even though he's a good one to start with, the very, very first part of his level has these platforms that go across, and they hit like breaks that'll cause the platforms to drop. And if you're a beginning player, it's very, very tricky to kind of get the timing. You can get it. That can be very tricky. The other tricky area for me is the disappearing blocks in Iceman stage. There are some blocks, I can't remember the actual name of them, I call them disappearing blocks, but they can be really tricky to kind of figure out the timing of, because they'll appear, they'll disappear. You don't have to jump on every one of them. You'll have some that'll kind of juke you out a little bit. But you really, really gotta watch, because if you're not careful, you can fall quickly. There is a trick you can use in one of the stages, though. If you have Gutsman's weapon, you can pick up the Magnet Beam, which allows you to create platforms. Now, if you have that, you can just make platforms wherever you need using weapon energy, and just bypass those disappearing blocks, and you can bypass those dropping platforms as well. It is a little frustrating, though, because it is an optional weapon, but it's not really optional. Because once you get to the Wily Castle, there are sections in the Wily Castle that require you to use that Magnet Beam. So it can be very frustrating if you never picked it up, which you should have picked it up. It is in an obvious spot. It's just that if you try to go through that stage without having Gutsman's weapon, you can't get it, and you do have to go back for it. Which is something I did like. You could go back to stages after you beat the Robot Master, which is something that later games kind of took away. So I did enjoy that. Another thing I enjoyed about this game is that it didn't, in fact, have a scoring counter. There were little pellets that you could pick up, and the only thing they did was increase your score. They took that away in later games, and I get high scores were more of an arcade thing, and they were going away in this era. I liked having a Mega Man game that actually had a score with it, though. And I really wish it's something that they would have kept up with, to where you could actually, you know, post your high scores in whatever Mega Man game after you cleared it and try to continually beat that high score. It's something cool that could have happened that they kind of took away, which was a bummer. But there are some other bosses once you get to the Wily Castle, the most notorious being the Yellow Devil. The Yellow Devil, if you've never fought him before, is a large blob creature that can take itself apart and fling pieces of itself at you. And it's a very tricky pattern to try to dodge and jump across. He does good damage whenever he hits you. I'll admit, the only way I've ever beaten this guy on the NES version is using the Elect Beam pause trick. Where this is one of the weird Mega Man games where Start will bring up your weapon selection screen, but Select will only pause the game. Well, you can hammer on that pause button, and if you have a projectile weapon on screen, it will do continual damage per frame whenever you pause and unpause. So if you're using the weakness for the Yellow Devil, which is the Electric Beam, you can take him out in a couple hits if you're using that pause trick. If you can't beat them like that, it's very tricky, but it is still possible. After that, there are repeat battles with all of the bosses from all the original stages, but at this point, you've got their weapon weaknesses. You can take them out in just a few hits. Then there's another little mini-boss in the Wily stage, where you've got this, it looks like junk metal with an electric eye with a bubble around it. But whenever it drops you in this room, there are the Gutsman blocks that you can pick up, and it's obvious if you're in a room with those blocks, use them. It's very weak against those Gutsman blocks. You can take it out very quickly. And then, other than your Robot Masters Revisited, you will have Wily Machine number 1. It's kind of anticlimactic because this guy is nowhere near as hard as Yellow Devil was. Yellow Devil should have been the final boss for this game. Instead, you get Wily Machine 1, which is kind of cool. There are 2 stages to the game. First stage, I use Firestorm, and you try to break through the front of it. Whenever you break through the front, you see Wily, and then I use Thunderbeam. You can use the pause trick again, but honestly, the pattern isn't too bad. You can easily beat Wily Machine. Which is, again, I think that Yellow Devil would have made a much better final boss with maybe Wily Machine being like a boss before you fight Yellow Devil. Just my opinion, of course. But it took me being an adult to beat this game. I never beat it until I played it on the Mega Man Legacy. Not the Legacy Collection, the Anniversary Collection on Xbox. That's where I beat this game first. I did beat it later on the Anniversary Collection. Or the Legacy Collection. Too many collections. I am glad that Capcom has let these games stay alive by continually re-releasing them in different collections. Although, the names of those collections will wreak havoc with my brain. But yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed renting it, but I didn't get to rent it very often. Never found a copy in my youth to buy, but eventually, finally, in the Xbox era is when I beat this game. But, on top of that, there are a couple other versions of this game out there, including the Wily Wars for the Sega Genesis, which includes, like, a 16-bit remix modes of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. The physics feel a bit different, and the music doesn't sound as good, and I'm not saying that as a knock on the Genesis sound chip. I just feel like the way they were composed maximized that NES chip, so whenever you move them over to the Genesis, it just didn't sound right. It's still a fun playthrough there, though. I would recommend trying it if you're a big Mega Man fan. And then finally, we've got Mega Man Powered Up for the PSP. The PSP version completely remakes the game. I do like the audio in it, although it is very, very happy, chibi sounding audio, just like they did with all the characters with their big heads and eyes. And they did a few changes I did disagree with. For one, they did bump the boss counter up to 8. They added first Time Man, which is a guy with alarm clock bells in his head. And then they added Oil Man. Thank God this is an audio-only podcast. You can go Google Oil Man and what he looks like, though, and you want to talk about a very possibly racist caricature. It's definitely Oil Man. It was one of those that even back when that PSP version came out, I just looked at him and I went, oh no. The weapon you get from him is kind of cool, though. You get like an oil slick that you can skate around on like it's a skateboard, which I thought was really cool. Another thing I really enjoyed about Powered Up is that if you can beat the Robot Masters without using their weakness, Mega Buster only, Dr. Light will repair that Robot Master, and then you can go through stages as that Robot Master using their powers throughout the stage, which I thought was a really cool, awesome touch. If you like Mega Man, it's definitely worth checking out and playing. I'm not going to give it its own episode. I was going to kind of like package my thoughts of Powered Up in with the original, but if you like the original, it's worth it to give Powered Up a try. Powered Up is much, much easier as well. So if you're struggling with Mega Man 1, but you really want to beat it, you can always go to Powered Up and play it. It is like a 2.5 3D remake. I think it's really enjoyable. But I do think that the original is the best, even though it is hard as nails. It is such a difficult game, but it's definitely worth taking the time to sit down and learn it. And that is something that you gotta do with a lot of Mega Man games. You gotta sit down and learn it. You gotta figure out that boss pattern and the weaknesses and everything. And that's why I enjoy new Mega Man games to this day, because I have a blast going in there and learning what stages to go to. I don't like going online and spoiling it. I try to stay away from any previews whenever a new one comes out. Speaking of which, Capcom, for the love of God, it's been a while. I mean, you gave us Mega Man 11 years back, but can we get an X9? I would love to see a Mega Man X9 done in a 16-bit Super Nintendo style, or maybe even like a 32-bit PlayStation 1 style, like X5 and 6 were. I really enjoyed those. God, I wish we'd get X9. But until then, we do have a large backlog that we can always go back to of fantastic games. And it all started with Mega Man 1, which it's just such a good game. I love it. I mean, it was very difficult, and I'm bummed that as a kid I could never get my own copy. Kind of like, Mega Man 3 and 2, I could either find someone to borrow it from, or it was readily available at the rental store. 1, I only got to rent a couple times before it disappeared. I don't know if they phased it out and sold it, and it's one of the games that I never got. But yeah, other than those few times renting it, I could never play it again until I got that Xbox version. I didn't even really emulate it, which is kind of funny, because I emulated a lot of games back then, but in my emulation era, I was really getting into RPGs, which could be why I skipped out on an old school platformer like the original Mega Man. Definitely worth playing, though. But that's going to end my rant on the original Mega Man. We're going to listen to a little bit more music before we roll our outro. As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Afterglow. If you enjoyed what you've listened to, be sure to check out the show notes, which contains our link tree. Our link tree contains a bunch of links to friends of the show, including the Superpod Network, the Reviews Brothers, the Main Quest, the Lost and Gone podcast, Retro Hangover, Retro Gaming Roundup, Secret Levels, which also hosts Jenny's podcast, the Nocturnal Mysteries, and finally, myself and Grim's other show, the Grimglow Low Tech Reviews. Along with links to all those other shows, you can check out some extra stuff for Afterglow, including a link to our Discord if you'd like to come in and chat a little bit and enjoy our Name That in This game every Wednesday. You can find links to other places to listen if you'd rather listen on maybe Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. Finally, there is a link to our Patreon if you'd like to support the show for $1 a month and get a shout out every episode like you heard in the intro of this episode. And then finally, there will be a link to a merch store if for some reason you would like to buy an Afterglow t-shirt, sticker, magnet, or many other items. There is a small web store that we got that does all things Afterglow if you'd like to support the show that way. And as always, thank you once again for listening. I know I already said that, but I can't thank you guys enough for listening to this show. It really makes my day anytime I see that listen counter just tick up a little bit. I just enjoy the fact that people enjoy listening to me talk about all these games. Finally, before we close it out, as always, we're going to run just a few commercials for those other friends of the show. That way you can get a preview of their stuff and check them out if you so wish.
Hey, this is Toby, one half of the Secret Levels podcast. We're a podcast that goes over old retro games. We go over the history, the story, the gameplay, some fun facts. We even rage a little bit. And then we go and give it a nice 1 to 10 rating to let you know if it's still worth playing. We have over 200 reviews for games on the NES, the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and many other consoles. You can find us on all the major podcasting apps, such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can follow us on social media at Secret Levels Pod. Game over, folks.
For more than 15 years, Retro Gaming Roundup has been the centre of your retro gaming universe, with top 10s, interviews, game reviews, news, and much more from all over the globe. Be sure to tune in every month for a new dose of Retro Gaming Roundup. That's RetroGamingRoundup.com.
Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. It's me, Martin, and you can join me on YouTube where I have hundreds of videos covering a huge range of video game topics. I've got top 10s, hidden gems, console-focused A to Zs, as well as dedicated videos to topics like Doom mods, 3D platform games, ninja games, pirate games, and more. I cover all systems from Commodore 64 right up to modern consoles. Nothing gaming is off the table. So be sure to search for the Reviews Brothers on YouTube, as well as on Instagram and TikTok for hundreds of retro and modern video game reviews.
Afterglow listeners, it's me, Keith Gasper, coming at you from the #1 retro gaming podcast, the Main Quest Podcast. Come hang out as a guest and I play and discuss a game from the backlog of my childhood. We're talking about our history and the history of the game, and if it's worth checking out today. We're talking about games from the NES, the Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx, Game Boy, and much more. And that's just on the main feed. If you enjoy what you're hearing on Afterglow, you're going to enjoy the Main Quest, and I'm happy to have you. Find the Main Quest on Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts are downloaded.
Hello, my name is Aaron. I'm one half of Super Pod Saga, a topical variety video game podcast fueled entirely by nostalgia and unleaded gasoline. Super Pod Saga, we discuss a different video game topic each and every week. We have new episodes every single Monday covering a different video game topic. More than anything, we want to entertain our listeners and make you feel like you're one of the boys, like you're hanging out at a campfire with some of your best zany, caffeine-powered buddies and just talking about your favorite games and all that stuff. Stop on down to Super Pod Saga. It's on every podcatcher there is. If it's not, let me know and we'll get on it. Again, Super Pod Saga, stop on by.